Hey everyone, I'm Odette Maimoni, and today I'm going to show you how to create flow in Power Automate that will refresh your Power BI dashboard. This will be very useful in cases when you want to make some action before the refresh happened or right after it finished. Let's start.
Odette Maimoni.
Okay, so I'm here in this site, make.powerapps.com. This is the place we're going to create the automation that will refresh the dashboard and will do whatever you want the automation to do. But first of all, before we start creating the automation, we need to set something in our Power BI dashboard. We need to create the column that will identify when was the last time the Power BI was refreshed. So we need to go, I suggest to create it in the dim date table in the dimension of the date because it's date column. And here, this is what I did. I created this column. I called it refresh time, and it basically the date time dot local now. This is the function that bring the current time. It looks like that. And why to create it here? Because when the dashboard is being refreshed, this is the time it takes the current time because it refreshed also the code that exists here. So this is the current refresh time, and this is the time that we need to create the automation because it's going to help us to understand if the Power BI has been refreshed or not. You're going to see it in a minute. So after we creating this column, we need to create measure because we need to take this data, we need to take it as a measure. So just create this measure. I took the max value. It doesn't matter because it always brings the same value to all of the rows, right? So use max, use selected value. Anyway, just create the measure that will bring you the date. And for the flow, we are going to use the DAX that bring this value. So in order to get the DAX that bring this value from this dashboard, we need to use it like that. It's not difficult at all. You don't have to understand DAX or whatever. Just go to Optimize, Performance Analyzer, and when you start recording, you'll see this little sign, Analyze this visual. So when you click on it, it gives you the DAX behind the card. I put the measure on the card previously, right? So this is a card, and I put the last refresh measure, and here is the DAX behind it. So we can take it, copy, or we can run it in a DAX query view. Let's do that first. You can see this is the DAX behind it. It's just a simple row function that take this one. So you need to copy that. Just copy this DAX. We're going to use it in our automation. So keep it open. We're going to use it. But before we're going to the Power Automate and do all of the flow, don't forget to publish this dashboard because we're going to need this measure and this column that we just created. And if this is not published, the flow is going to break because we need to take this from the service. This is the place that all of the recent data exists. So we need this in the service. So after we publish this dashboard, after we created the column and the measure, we can go to the Power Automate. So back to the Power Automate. This is, as I said, make.powerapps.com. And we're going to this place, flows. Here we will choose new flow and then start from instant. This is instant cloud flow. We are going to change it to the trigger that we need after we create the flow. But we can start from instance and then change it to whatever trigger we need. This is something we can change. So don't be afraid to choose instance. You don't need to choose the exact trigger that you're going to use at the production. So this is what we're going to use for the test. Here, we're going to give a name to this flow. This flow is going to refresh the data, refresh the Power BI dashboard. You give it the exact thing that it's going to do. If it comes from a trigger that check if something happened. If after the refresh, it do 1, 2, 3 things. So give it the meaningful name so we will know what exactly this flow doing. Remember, you are not the only developer that is working on the Power Automate flow. So when other people come and see this flow, you want them to understand in a high level what this flow do. So give it a meaningful name. I choose manually trigger for now, but remember, as I said, you can change it after whenever you want. This is the Power Automate. This is the way it looked. Here, we're going to create the steps one by one after each other. It's going to be look like that. And we do it step by step, slowly, and I will explain everything. So let's start. If you like my content, this is the time for you to subscribe my channel. Thank you. Okay, so first of all, we're going to use two variables for the previous refresh time and the current refresh time. This is the way we're going to check if the refresh is finished, because the action of the refresh Power BI dashboard is not synchronized, is asynchronized. This is the way it works. You you trigger the Power BI to be refreshed, but you don't know when it finished. It just run it as an action, and then you need to check if the process is finished. So we need to do some manipulation to understand how to get the current refresh time. So we're going to use two variables. So the first thing we're going to do is to initialize two variables. So I'm going to click on new step, and I'm going to looking for variable. Under variable, we're going to see all of the action that related to variables. We're going to use the initialize variable. First, we're going to create one of the previous refresh. I'm going to call it prev refresh. The type is going to be string because, as you can see, we don't have text here. This is okay. We're going to handle it. Currently, we don't put any value. It's going to be empty. We'll just initialize the variable. Again, I'm going to create prev refresh and the current refresh, the new refresh time. So I'm going to create one more initialized variable, one more step like that. I can copy this action and do it like that, copy to my clipboard. And then when I click on new step, you can see here my clipboard. This is all of the copied action that we copy in this flow. So we can click on it, and we can change the name of the variable to be new refresh, current refresh, whatever you want. In my previous tutorial that I use when I'm using Power Automate, I suggest everyone to give meaningful name to each step. So it will be readable and clear, and you don't have to click on each steps to understand what it does. So how I do it, I click on the three dots, rename, and then here I give the explanation of what I'm doing. So initial variable prev refresh, and here I'm going to rename it initialize variable new refresh. Great. Now we can move forward. The next thing I'm going to do is to get the previous refresh. So I can put it in the variable of the prev refresh. So how do I do that? Remember that we copied this DAX from here, that we can get the previous or whatever the last time this dataset has been refreshed. So this is the DAX we're going to use. So if you didn't copy it yet, copy it now. So I'm back into the Power Automate, and my next step is going to be from Power BI territory. Here, looking for the action called run a query against dataset. This is the one that we need. Here, we're going to choose the workspace. Remember that I told you to publish the dashboard before we starting because we run against the service. So you need the Power BI at the service will be updated. Choose the right workspace, then the right data set. Here, just copy the DAX that you just took from Power BI, paste it here. The DAX that you just copied, paste it here, and we're going to test it. This is the way I work. I suggest you as well to test each time you do something, because you know for sure that you're doing right and you can move forward. So let's start by testing it. First of all, we didn't save it, so I'm saving it. After it's saved, it gave you the option to test it. In the first time, it asked us to sign in. So we're going to do it only on our first run flow. This is it. So it finished, and we can see your flow ran successfully. This is good. Each step is with green V check, so this is good, nothing failed. And we can drill to each step and see what was the output. Here we didn't do anything, just initialize, so we don't have to see anything. But here, this is interesting because we want to see the output that came from the DAX that ran against the dashboard. And here we can see this is good. This is the correct last refresh time. It know to run the DAX against the dataset and bring the results. This is nice. Before we back to edit our flow, copy that. Copy the first table row because we're going to need it in the next step. Back into the edit mode, and here the next step we're going to be the parse JSON action, because the output that came from the run query against dataset is a JSON, and we cannot use JSON in our process. We need it to be one value to get the one value from the JSON. So even though it's just one value, it doesn't have to be loop or anything. This is the way it works in Power Automate. So we need to parse the JSON that came from here. So our next step going to be parse JSON. We can get it from data operation actions. You can see it here. The content, when we going to press on it, see, this is the window that bring you the data from the previous steps. We can see we have the variable that we can use. Right now, it doesn't give you anything because it's empty, but we can use it. We can use the data that came from the run a query against the dataset. We can also use data that come from the trigger. This is like the username, the date, all of the data that came from the manually trigger. Right now, we need the first table rows. This is the content. The schema is going to be the one that we just copy, but we need to generate from samples. So we need to paste the output that came from the previous step, and then it knows to generate the right schema. Before I'm going to test it, let's give it a name, proper name to each step. So let's do that. Here, we're going to run a query against a dataset to get the prev refresh. Okay, so this is for us to know. Here, we parse JSON to the prev refresh. So this is it, because we are going to use the same steps afterwards, and I want it to be separate with different names. So everyone will know what each steps do before clicking it. And I'm saving it and testing it to see what it does. Each of the steps ran successfully, and we can see this is also took the data, and it is great because the next step, we can use the data that came from here as a value. We don't need to think how we can manage to get the data from JSON, because this is the step that doing it. Let's go back to edit mode. Okay, the next step is going to set the value that comes from here to the variable, because this is the one that we need, right? So we did all of these steps to just get the value and put it in the variable. So the next step is going to be also from variable area, and we can set variable right now because we already initialized one and we choose the prev refresh. The value is going to be this one. You can see I can take the data from path JSON to the prev refresh, right? This is the previous step. So I can choose this one. Don't be afraid if you can see it created automatically apply to each. Why? Because JSON can be with multiple values. So in our case, it doesn't matter because we only have one value that returned from this JSON. We don't need to be afraid that it will only loop one time, but we cannot get rid of it. This is the way it works. So let's test it to see everything is okay before we continue. This is great. We can see each of the steps is with green check mark, and you can see the apply to each only ran one time because we have only one value, and we set the variable to be with the previous refresh time. Great. Next step is going to be the most important one is the refresh, because this is the time that, okay, we know what was the previous refresh time. Now we can refresh the dataset. And then when it's been refreshed, we need to check if the refresh is finished. And this is, we're going to use this one, the prev refresh. You're going to see in a minute. So let's start with bringing the Power BI action of refresh dataset. Here we're going to use the right workspace and obviously the dashboard that we want to be refreshed. We don't have to set anything here, and I want to test it, but I need to see if it really works. So I want to open the Power BI Add service. Here I made a service, and this is the dashboard that we are working on. And we are going to see if it's really being refreshed. Let's start. Let's run it. I want to demonstrate to you what when I mean unsynchronized action, because you can see right now that this is successfully happened, right? It mark it with check mark, and this is already done. Our flow is done. But behind the scenes, when I back into my Power BI service, you can see the Power BI is still refreshing. So it's done by run the refresh, but it doesn't wait the refresh to be finished. So this is when it comes like tricky, because we run a refresh, but we don't know if it finished. So we can, if the steps that we want to do is to do something after the Power BI is finished, we cannot do it right after this action because you can see it's still refreshing. So this is where all of the manipulation is come, and this is where we're going to need and use these variables. So this is okay. Right now it's successfully finished. We can see in the history of the refresh, it completed. You can see the type is via API. This is the way it works when it runs from Power Automate. You also need to check the average of the time it took this dataset to be refreshed. It's going to use us in our next loop that we are going to create. In my case, I can see that something like 40 seconds, something like that, 45 seconds. This is the time that is going to take to this data to be refreshed, like something like that. So I'm back into to my flow, and our next step is going to wait until the Power BI finish the refresh. How we're going to do that? We're going to use container. What do I mean? Under control, we have some kind of actions that we can put inside, like the loop and all of kind of scopes that we can put multiple action inside. We need, for this flow, we need to wait. So do until is literally what we need. Do until, and here we can put the condition like until what, and what is the condition that when it's true, it's going to stop. In our case, we want it to stop when the Power BI has been refreshed. All of the steps that we're going to put inside is to check if it finished to be refreshed. So before I'm putting the condition, let's make the actions inside the do until scope. Okay, so our first step is going to be wait, because we know that refresh can take time. So this is why I check what is the average time our dataset take to add the refresh. So I put I think the maximum time. You can put the average. Just think that you want this loop of the do until action to run one time, because this is heavy. So if we're going to put here good enough time for this action to be wait, it will run one time. This is our optimal way, and this is the optimal to run one time. So here I'm going to click on add an action inside and do until, because the action is supposed to be inside this container. Don't use the new step. Okay, this is the action that inside the loop. And the action is being called delay. Delay, okay, this is the action. We can write here the time that we want it to be delayed. In our case, I choose second because the dataset is not heavy at all. And I am going to let it wait like 30 seconds. Okay, so the next steps is going to be exactly the same of these three actions. Run a query against dataset, put it in a JSON, and then in a variable. Why we do it again? Because we refresh the dataset. Then we want to wait, like the amount of time it took to the refresh to be finished. After that, we want to run against the dataset again and see if it's been refreshed. It's going to give us other time, other less refresh time. So this is the checking that we are doing. We see if the time that returned from the measure is different from what we have. If the time is different, it means that the refresh has been finished. In our case, I'm not going to check if it's different. You can do it, but we can be more smart and we can check if it's greater. I mean, if the previous refresh is less than the new refresh. This is smarter because we want to make sure that the data is really currently refreshed. But you can use different. I'll explain when we get to this to the condition part. But let's start by bringing the action after the delay. So we can just copy the steps. We can copy this. We can copy this one. We can copy also this one. Add an action. My clipboard. I'm going to run a query against dataset. And I'm going to rename it because this is to get the new refresh. But the action is going to be the same. The action is going to be the same. I'm going to run against this workspace, this dataset, the same DAX. Okay, next action is going to be also the parse JSON, but keep in mind that you need to change the value here. The first step, the first table rows is not from the previous step. See, if I'm hovering here, you can see it takes the data from this action. So we need to change it. Let's remove it. And then you can see this new refresh. This is the data that we need. So we choose the first table row. We can keep this one. The schema is still the same. Let's rename this one also. And the last one is the loop, apply to each. And here we want to change the variable to be set for new refresh, right? We're going to set the new variable, and it's going to be from the previous step, the new refresh. And here you can see it automatically create a new loop, but we don't need this one, the external one. So we can drag this loop outside and get rid from this one. Okay, so this is the loop. It runs on the previous step and get the data to the new refresh. Okay, so let's save it. We have all of the step, but still we need the condition. It's not going to work before we give it condition. So as I said, we can see, we can set the condition to be if the prev refresh is not equal to new refresh. We can do that. But I want to be smarter and to create something different. I want to check if the new refresh is greater than the previous one. And remember, we set this variable to be strings. So it's tricky one. Again, this is advanced, but I want you to see that. Here in this windows, we have all of the dynamic content that come from the previous step, but we can also use expression. Expression is like all of the functions inside the Power Automate. We have stream functions, we have collection, logical, a lot more function that we can use in order to do all of the manipulation that we need. My condition is going to be look like that. Don't be afraid. It's not that hard to understand. I'm going to explain. Let's click on OK. Just you can see how it looks after it's like being done. It looks like in a pink look. But I'm going to paste it in a notepad just for you to understand what I did. Okay, I took the variables, right? You can see this variable is the prev refresh. This variable is the new refresh. And for each one of them, I use the formula called parse datetime because, as you remember, we set this variable as strings. I want to compare between the two of the variables. And this is a nice way to do it. We convert the values to ticks. Ticks, it's like a numeric values. And for it, we can compare if the previous one is less than the new. Less is a function that you can give two values and it compare if the first one is less than the second one. If it's true, it return true. If not, it return false. So in our case, we wanted to return true. And until then, I wanted to do all of the actions. So this is the formula that we compare these two variables, and we wanted to return true. This is the way we put this value. Again, this is advanced. I know. If you want to understand it better, just comment on this video and I will explain if you need help with in your use case. But I just want you to see that you can get to really functionable way. And if you have specific use case, you can manage it here in Power Automate. Okay, this is it. We can test it. Let's save. Test. Okay, you can see each of the steps has been checked as they done. Only the do until is keep running. This is the sign of this mean it's still running. Let's see what happened in the Power BI side. It already has been finished to run. Let's see. You can see this is finished really quick this time. And let's see, okay, it's done. It's done. Let's see the output. The output that came from the second one, let's start from the beginning, sorry. The output came from the first one is this hour, 12, and the output that came from the other one is 1. Okay, so when it did all of the comparing, from the new variable to the previous one, it returns true. And this is when it knows to finish. Okay, so we basically done for our tutorial, but the whole thing is to do a flow that will allow us to make steps after the Power BI has been refreshed. Because if I'm using only this action, we don't know if it really finished. So this is very important. This is something we cannot do in Power BI subscriptions. We can set subscription that only depend on times. Here we can set some other triggers. As you remember, I told you that you can change the trigger anytime by deleting it. When I deleting it, the flow doesn't allow you to save it without choosing triggers. So if you delete in one, it make you to choose other one. And you can see a lot other triggers that you can depend on, something that you cannot use in Power BI subscriptions. Also, we can do other steps before the Power BI refreshes happen, like checking if something update in the source end. And also, we can do all of this manipulation, small steps that allow us to understand when the Power BI has been refreshed and immediately do other steps. So this is the flow. It took time because I explained each of the steps, but this is really simple. This is really simple flow you can do and control your Power BI refresh. Okay, this is it. If you have any questions, just write me in the comment and I will answer you. See you in my next video. Thank you.